Do you want me to go ahead and start?
Let me see, what is our time? 2 o'clock on the dot, so sure, we'll go ahead and get started. And
all right, I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my camera and we will go ahead and get started.
Great.
All right. Well, as usual, I just want to thank you for having me come and do this presentation. I apologize. Let me just tell my phone. Sorry about that. They were paging me for a phone call, and I thought I had let everyone know that I was teaching, so I apologize. All right, so this class is called Surviving Today's Food Jungle, and today our goal is going to help you learn some basic principles about food quality and to help you make informed decisions when shopping in today's food jungle. And see if I can get Claire, I'm so sorry, my slide is not advancing.
You might try using the arrow key.
That's what I'm using.
If you click on the screen, does it move forward?
Let me try getting rid of that, and there we go. Okay, I apologize. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Got off to a little rough start, but hey, technology, woohoo! All right, so this class is not intended to diagnose, treat, or mitigate any disease. Dietary supplements and foods can interact with prescription medications. So if you are taking a prescription medication, become informed about the possible interactions. So some things that make natural grocers unique and different is our 5 founding principles. So we are, number 1, dedicated to our focus on nutrition, science-based nutrition education, and we deliver this as a free service to our communities. We're also focused on the highest quality standards. We were voted top 5 healthiest grocery stores in America, so we're very proud about that. And number 3, we are committed to everyday affordable pricing. And number 4, supporting our local communities, which is why we do these outreach programs as a free service. And we are also dedicated to our great employees. So which foods work for you? So one thing to keep in mind, we do need to listen to our body. And the reason for that is because we are all biologically unique and different, which means that we can't all eat the same way. You want to look at how, foods that are going to cause irritation for you, foods that might not be right for you are going to cause like digestive complaints. So think things like heartburn, gas, bloating, cramping, diarrhea, constipation, tummy aches, or pain and inflammation, headaches, joint pain, allergies, or itis conditions like arthritis, dermatitis, anything ending in itis. Moods, you might have irritability or be depressed. Unbalanced energy would be too little or too much energy can be problematic. And that can also include sleep disturbances. And physical appearance like your skin health, bags or dark circles under your eyes. And then of course, weight issues, weighing too much or weighing too little. But it can also branch into other things like menstrual cycles, PMS, cramps, bloating, irritability, fatigue. So our food has changed more in the past 50 years than in the past 100, or I'm sorry, in the past 10,000 years. So this is the first generation of children that are not expected to outlive their parents. Childhood obesity is considered an epidemic, and dying from overconsumption is unheard of in many countries, but now more people around the world are dying from overconsumption rather than underconsumption, which would be known as starvation. So we are dealing with a host of nutritional and lifestyle disorders, things like ADD and ADHD, autism and other neurological disorders, autoimmune disease, inflammatory disorders, think vascular disease, and more. Nutrition is the foundation for good health. It is preventative medicine. So, survival tip number one. First of all, we want to eat real food. So for most of human life on this planet, we ate a wide variety of plant foods like leaves, roots, fruit, seeds, and nuts, along with lean meats and healthy fats. And it has only been in the last 200 years that humans have been eating refined foods like sugar, canned foods, and refined white flour. And it wasn't until the 1950s that margarine and other refined fats had been on our table. So we want to choose food as close to how it appears in nature as possible. So natural foods are usually not going to be found in a package. Which packaged foods are okay? Well, meat, fish, poultry, veggies, bulk foods, dairy, those types of things are okay in packaged foods. And we're going to be talking about the quality of those foods matter as we go throughout the presentation. And natural foods are typically found around the perimeter of the grocery store. So if you're shopping that outer perimeter, you're going to be getting the food closer to how it appears in nature with your produce department, your meat and dairy department. But once you start venturing into the aisles, especially of conventional grocery stores, that's where you're going to start running into your junk food items. Also, of course, eating natural foods eliminates the need to read labels because natural foods don't contain labels. Like, for example, if you pick up an onion in the produce department, there is no ingredients to read. It is its own ingredient, it's its own thing. It's an onion. And so we want to choose foods without chemicals in them. So at natural grocers, we do not carry anything with artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, or olestra. And so you want to eat foods you can imagine in their raw state or growing in nature. Take the Twinkie, for example. What are the raw ingredients in a Twinkie? The truth is there are no raw ingredients in a Twinkie. It's pretty much man-made from start to finish. And then the author, Michael Pollan, who wrote Omnivore's Dilemma, he wrote a really cute little book, and in it came this quote: "If it came from a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't." So how can you tell? Is the food in a package? And you want to watch out for food with an exceptionally long shelf life. Think Twinkies. They say you can eat a Twinkie after it's been on the shelf for 13 years. I don't know about you, but I personally would not want to eat a 13-year-old Twinkie or even a one-day-old Twinkie. They're so junky. So, and it's like if you've ever found a French fry in your car from months ago and it looks the same as the day you purchased it, that would be a good indication of a food with an incredibly long shelf life, and we wouldn't want to consume that. So survival tip number 2, make sure that you're reading labels. When you choose any packaged food, you must always turn the package around to the nutrition facts panel. And this panel in the ingredient list below it tells you what is exactly in that product. So you want to avoid laundry list labels, like anything that's got a long ingredients list. We want to keep that out of our diet. So keep in mind 2 things when you're looking at an ingredient list. First, if you can't pronounce it or wouldn't use it in your own kitchen, you should be cautious of that ingredient. Second, if a product contains more than 5 to 10 ingredients, it is probably junk food. Always check the serving size first. So some products, think like cookies or chips, have a deceptively small serving size. So for example, maybe a serving size is 2 cookies or 12 chips. And the average quantity we eat at a sitting and the serving size may be significantly different. So you will have to multiply the information on the nutrition facts to match the amount that we actually consume. And then you want to read the nutrition facts and the ingredients list. Make it a habit to know what is in your food. Ingredients are listed in descending quantity. The product will contain the highest quantity of the first ingredient, then less of the second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. And so what is the deal with trans fats? The changed molecular shape of these fatty acids negatively alters their biological functions. So excess trans fatty acids can promote increased cholesterol and triglyceride counts, make blood platelets stickier, which encourages blood clotting, worsen an essential fatty acid deficiency, interfere with the body's detoxification system, interfere with insulin receptors, increase inflammation, and negatively impact the immune system. So that's what trans fats do. I'll give you an example. When I go to like a convenience store to gas up my car, let's say for some reason the gas pump won't take your credit card, so you have to go in and pay. So I'll go into the convenience store to pay. And as a nutritionist, I often cannot resist looking around at the junk food because it just still surprises and shocks me that in the year 2020, that we still allow this type of junk food on our shelves, but almost everything you pick up has these partially hydrogenated oils in them, also known as trans fats. And if you think about it this way, trans fats are literally one chemical step away from being plastic. So they literally plasticize your cells. So that is why we want to make sure to keep those out of our way of eating. And then another tip is if you can't pronounce an ingredient, you might want to avoid it. So there is one caveat to that. When nutrients are added to foods or beverages, the names may look like questionable ingredients, but in general, they are okay. And by that, look for vitamins and minerals that may be written out in their full name form. So like, for example, D-alpha tocopherol is going to be vitamin E, or pantothenic acid is B5, or cholecalciferol is B3. So if you see those types of words, even if you might not know what they are, those particular things are going to be okay to have in your product. So survival tip number 3, and this one we're going to camp out in for a little while because I really like to make sure that everybody understands why we want to opt for organic and non-GMO. So a study published in the journal Pediatrics and conducted by scientists at Harvard University and the University of Montreal found that exposure to organophosphate pesticides at levels common among US children may contribute to ADHD prevalence. Glyphosate is an organophosphate and is frequently used as an adjuvant in vaccines given to kids and adults. And organic produce is higher in phytonutrients than conventional. Phytonutrients have antioxidant activity in the body, supporting healthy inflammation, immune system, and protection against free radical damage. So I just want to explain that for a minute because pesticides are going to render the plants lazy because they don't have to work to fight off pests and disease, which means they do not produce the protective phytonutrients in the way that organically grown plants will in response to those outdoor stressors like pests and disease. Phytonutrients are antioxidants and are protective to our bodies when we eat them. So I want to explain about I want you to understand what knowing what organic means on a label. So 100% organic means it contains only organically produced ingredients. Organic, these foods must consist of at least 95% organically produced ingredients, excluding water and salt, and the USDA seal can be used on these packages. Now, if it says made with organic ingredients, those are processed products that contain at least 70% organic ingredients. Can use this phrase and list up to 3 of the organic ingredients or food groups on the principal display panel. The USDA seal cannot be used on these packages. The non-organic ingredients, 30% or less, may not be genetically engineered or include other prohibited methods such as irradiation or fertilization with sewage sludge. So if buying everything organic seems overwhelming, if you're shopping at natural grocers, all of our produce is 100% organic. And so you can always start with produce that you would see on the Dirty Dozen list. And you can get that from the Environmental Working Group. They will give you the Dirty Dozen list, which now, of course, is more like the Dirty 50 Dozen list. I mean, there's just so many products. But Natural Grocers has elected to only carry 100% organic produce. We will not carry any conventional. So now I want to touch on GMOs. GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, and they are an unknown factor in human health, and studies are absolutely alarming. So genetic engineering involves taking genes from one species and forcing them into the DNA of another species, changing the molecular biology of that organism. As more farmers have adopted variations of corn, soybeans, and cotton, bred to tolerate weed killer in recent years, the use of herbicides has increased steadily. Studies have found that mice-fed genetically modified potatoes developed abnormal and damaged cells, as well as proliferative cell growth in the small intestines. So think cancer in their small intestines. Rats fed genetically modified corn developed liver lesions. More than half of the offspring of female rats fed genetically modified soy died within 3 weeks of birth. A multi-generational study conducted on mice fed genetically modified corn found that hundreds of proteins that affect gene expression were expressed in an increased or decreased amount, which then altered biological processes. The level of one known soy allergen is as much as 7 times higher in genetically modified soy as in conventional soy. Genetically modified soy had up to 14% lower amounts of cancer-fighting isoflavones compared to regular soy. And canola, engineered to have vitamin A in its oil, had highly reduced levels of vitamin E. The only published human feeding experiment showed that genetic material inserted into genetically modified soy transfers into the DNA of intestinal bacteria and continues to function. It is a good idea to minimize the untested GMOs in your diet. Top crops that are likely to be GMO, and this is all the way back in 2010, so 10 years ago. So I have to think that it's actually worse now. But soybeans, 91% grown in the US are GMO. Corn, 85% grown in the US is GMO. Canola oil, 88% grown in the US is GMO. Cotton, 71% grown in US are GMO. Sugar beets, 90% grown in the US are GMO. And ingredients made from the above 60 to 70% of convenience foods contain ingredients from a GMO source. Newer GMOs include squash, papaya, Arctic apples. Those are genetically modified so that they never turn brown. So if you ever buy an apple at a conventional store and it is not turning brown over time, that's a good indication it's an Arctic apple. Aqua Bounty salmon, which I think is the very first genetically altered um, uh, living, like, not since fish are, it's a first living fish that they've been able to genetically modify. And then the innate potato. So these, you want to look for USDA organic or non-GMO labels to be certain you are avoiding products with GMO ingredients. And one other thing I will point out, that when rats are given the choice between organic feed, like organic corn, or GMO corn, rats will instinctively choose organic corn. They won't go near GMO corn. When they are not given a choice, like if that's all they have to eat is genetically modified corn, they will eat it. But by the third generation, they are typically infertile, sterile. So we can see that even animals would choose not to eat genetically modified foods. So just bringing that to your attention. So now we'll move on to survival tip number 4. Choose naturally raised animal products. So I want to start off by explaining what are concentrated animal feeding operations. So when the bottom line for a meat manufacturer is getting an animal as fat as possible, as soon as possible, for the least amount of money possible, ethics and the well-being of the animal go right out the door. A grain, corn, and soy diet increases omega-6 fatty acids in the meat, leading to a pro-inflammatory state in the body. It may also may also include animal byproducts in the feed. So antibiotics, antibacterials, antimicrobials, and insecticides are put in the feed. Animals require antibiotics to live in these conditions. In other words, the conditions are so bad that these animals are very, very sick. And so the problem is that 70% of antibiotic drugs used in the US are used in animal agriculture. These are the same antibiotics that human beings use. So when you get a serious bacterial infection in your body and you go to the doctor and they write you a prescription for an antibiotic, 70% of those are going straight into conventional cattle. So when we are eating conventional cattle that's not being raised on its own natural diet, the meat becomes pro-inflammatory, and you're getting a hefty dose of not only antibiotics, but of course, hormones. And so grass-fed animals, which is a cow's natural diet, have a higher ratio of omega-3 fatty acids, which help modulate inflammation, as well as other health-promoting nutrients. So products from grass-fed animals are also higher in nutrients, including CLA, vitamin E, beta carotene, and glutathione. Poultry, all poultry is hormone-free. All hormones were banned in poultry operations in the 1950s. Hormones are not used in poultry because they do not work to increase the size or growth rate of the animals. Other growth promoters could be used, antibiotics and arsenic. So at natural grocers, we only sell naturally raised meats, and that means that the animals have access to outdoor and pasture. They're never fed animal byproducts, never given growth promoters. Antibiotics are given only when an animal is sick, and then it is removed from the herd and no longer sold as naturally raised. Organically raised were given only organically grown feed, and 100% grass-fed were raised on grass only. So survival tip number 5, have a plan and prioritize. So making sure that you understand that real food takes time to prepare. Think out your meal plan for the week and make a grocery list based on your meal plan ingredients. Prepare what you can ahead of time. Schedule time to prepare your food. Fast foods are meant to be fast, not nutritious. So we don't want to be relying on fast foods. For me, like my easiest day for meal planning is on Monday. That's my day off from work, and that is the day that I do the majority of my cooking and food prep for the week so that I have good quality breakfast, lunch, dinners, snacks, things like that. Another thing that I want to encourage you to do is get kids involved in food preparation. Kids are going to be more likely to eat healthy foods when they have had a hand in helping to prepare those foods. Plus, you're teaching them a good life skill. Whether it's a little girl or a little boy, get them involved so that they can learn that important life skill of cooking. So prioritize time for quality meals. A home cooked meal does not have to take long to prepare. And on average, you can spend 30 to 45 minutes to prepare and cook your meal. Some can be done as quickly as 15 minutes, depending on what needs to be done. And I have noticed that if I have done my prep work on Monday, most of my meals can be made or put together in about 15 minutes throughout the week, which is really nice. And then I always make sure that I have enough leftovers to bring for my lunches when I come to work. Make sure your ingredients are ready when you are by thawing meat in the refrigerator in the morning and having all of the ingredients on hand. Making time to cook is going to be empowering. Chopping your own ingredients and adding your own seasonings means you're in control of the flavor and exactly what goes into it. Make extras, like I was saying, leftovers make an easy meal for another night or lunch the next day. And think about where your time is going and prioritize. And so finding time to make meals will pay off. The average American spends 20% of their day watching television. This may be the first thing to cut back on. And survival tip number 6, you want to try to eat seasonally. So what that does is it helps ensure the highest nutrient content and the lowest prices. And we have distinct environmental seasons, and our diet should include what the season allows. So for example, it makes sense to eat lighter fare in the spring and summer. Think leafy greens and salads and more raw. And then come fall and winter, it makes more sense to eat more heavier, dense foods, meats and stews and soups and things like that. And you might want to become a locavore and get as many foods as close to home as you possibly can. Survival tip number 7, and this is a really important one. We want to eat a lot of fermented foods, or at least include fermented foods in your way of eating every single day. So almost every culture throughout history has their own cultured or fermented foods. So think things like dairy, which would include kefir, yogurt, cottage cheese, sour cream, buttermilk, and all of these fermented foods can make dairy easier to digest. Now, yes, there are some people that don't digest dairy well at all, and so therefore they may need to avoid it. And in that case, there are other things that you can include, like soy, miso, tempeh, veggies like sauerkraut and kimchi. For grains, you can do sourdough bread, and drinks like beer, wine, mead, and hard cider can all be good sources of fermented foods and drinks. And there are many benefits to fermented foods, and American diets are missing them. So fermented foods have probiotic bacteria in them, and these friendly bacteria support digestion by already beginning the digestive process by releasing enzymes to break down the food. And so our bodies don't have to work so hard. And so you want to support a healthy bacterial balance. If there are enough friendly bacteria, there isn't room for the bad guys to grow. It also, these fermented foods are going to help with healthy elimination, so they can support healthy bowel movements. And then another big factor, and especially during this time of, in the fall and winter, as we are definitely in cold, flu, virus, bacteria seasons, that fermented foods can be very supportive of a healthy immune system. Also, people don't know that fermented foods support the health of the heart. And this is because it reduces the reabsorption of bile, allowing cholesterol to make its way out of the body. But you have to be wary because many products of yogurt and kefir are actually really high in sugar. So you want to make sure and read your labels, and it would be better to get the plain versions. You can always add in your own fresh or frozen berries if you want to sweeten it up a little, or add a little bit of stevia or lohan, something like that. But you just want to be very careful because there are some products out there. If you go to a conventional grocery store and pick up a Yoplait yogurt, which, by the way, I don't even know how they get away with calling that fermented, because it's not even aged for 4 hours. But if you look at the back, and we all know it's a very small container, and it'll have like 25 to 27 grams of sugar in it. So it's basically just like a slightly glorified dessert. And you do want to make sure that your cultured products still have live and or active cultures, and pasteurization and too much heat is going to kill off that beneficial bacteria. And then just keeping in mind that when we're talking about the health of our immune system, that 70% of the immune system resides in our gut. And fermented foods encourage immune cells to support healthy immunity. So survival tip number 8, we want to implement foundational supplements. So even if you eat a healthy diet, you probably also experience at least one of the following nutrient robbers. Things like stress, coffee and caffeine, sugar, alcohol, chlorinated water, environmental pollution, exercise, grains, unless they are soaked and sprouted, soy, unless it's soaked and sprouted. And so just to give you an explanation, so for example, your multivitamin. And what we want to do is we want to focus on getting a high quality multivitamin and mineral. Most of the vitamins and minerals that you find at conventional grocery stores are going to be low dose, synthetic, artificial. Some of them are even put out by drug companies. So they don't have a lot of good quality in conventional stores. So good quality multivitamin and mineral is going to be like an insurance policy. It's going to ensure that you're getting the nutrients that you may be lacking or missing in your diet. Magnesium is incredibly important because like 75% of Americans are deficient in magnesium, and magnesium actually facilitates over 600 enzyme reactions in the human body. It is incredibly important not only for bones, but muscles, heart function, mood. There are so many benefits to magnesium, and it's one of my favorite minerals. There are different forms of it, so you want to make sure that you get the right form for your special issue. So if you're having like muscle cramps, aches, pains like that, then you might want to focus on getting a magnesium malate or a magnesium taurate or a magnesium glycinate. Those forms of magnesium are easy to absorb and are less likely, if not at all likely, to cause loose stools or diarrhea. But the forms like magnesium citrate and magnesium oxide, those are the two forms that draw water into the bowel. So they can increase bowel movements. And that would be perfect if you're struggling in that area. But if you take too much of the magnesium citrate or oxide, then that can be a problem because it can lead to loose stools or even diarrhea. Then, of course, EPA and DHA, those are the active constituents of omega-3 fish oil. And you can also get it in algae oils if you happen to be a vegetarian or a vegan. But EPA and DHA are so incredibly important because they modulate inflammation in the human body. They are supportive of a healthy brain, healthy heart, healthy vision, healthy joints. And most people don't get enough EPA and DHA through their diet. So for example, if you wanted to obtain enough from your diet, you would need to eat fish or seafood about 3 to 4 times a week to get enough, to get an adequate amount. If you're like me and you weren't raised on seafood, and I've never really been able to grow to like it, I take it in supplemental form. But there are other sources of it. So for example, grass-fed meat is high in omega-3. Omega-3 rich eggs are high. Also game meats are another option. But it does have to be, you know, grass-fed, that type of thing. Otherwise, if it's grain-fed, coming from a confined animal feeding operation, it has almost no omega-3 in it at all. Lutein, which most people think of for healthy vision, and that is true. Lutein supports healthy eyes, but a lot of people don't realize that it has 2 other major functions. One of those is not only eyes, but a healthy brain. And so people with higher lutein levels in their eyes tend to have a higher lutein level in their brain, and that supports healthy cognition. The other thing that lutein does is it supports the health of your skin. And so I really like it because what I have noticed is that it does seem to help me tan when I go out into the sun and during the spring and summer months. And so I love the way that it supports the skin. And then super nutrients, that allows you to customize your foundational supplement program to achieve your specific health goals. So super nutrients are going to include supplements such as turmeric, also known as curcumin, garlic, beets, greens, CoQ10, probiotics, OPCs, which are going to include grapeseed extract, pycnogenol, and pine bark extract. That's what an OPC is. Mushrooms, berberine. And so what I often do is I tell people to look at the things that run in their family. And if there's a particular area where you see a lot of family members struggling with that area, like in my family, a lot of my family members have had or did have heart issues. So I take super nutrients designed to support my heart, like CoQ10 and garlic, things like that. So that one is super nutrients is how you get to tailor make to fit your own individual needs. So survival tip number 9, you want to strive for balance. And you want to adopt simple changes. So sometimes something as simple as eliminating soda can make a world of difference. Or when you must eat fast food, get only a sandwich, no fries, no Coke. So just adopt little changes. That's one of the biggest ways that you can set a goal that you can attain. The easier the goal, the more successful you are, then that enables you to make bigger and better goals down the road. You want to be realistic about these changes. You want to pay attention to how your body feels. It's very important for parents to lead by example. Don't expect your kids to do as you say and not as you do. You can, and so, you know, pay attention, listen to your body. If a way of eating is making you feel great, then yay, you've done a great job. If the way you're eating is making you feel tired, cranky, irritable, zero energy, then that is not doing your body any good service. And then don't become obsessed with always eating right. And you can utilize the 80-20 principle. And that means is if you try to eat well the majority of the time, like 80% of the time, and if you have a meal sometimes that aren't quite as healthy, like 20% of the time, then they're not going to have as big of an impact on your health. So you don't need to be rigid about it, but just striving to eat well 80% of the time. And so, you know what, I apologize. Let me go back for a second. I just wanted to point out the SMART goal setting. So when you're making your goals, you want them to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So that's one way that you can write out your goals. By the way, if you write out your goals, when you do that physical act of taking a pen and a paper and writing things down, then it becomes more attainable, because when a goal is just up in your head, then it's really more of just a wish. Whereas when you put it down on paper, it becomes more of a reality, more solid. You can read it and it becomes just easier to do. And so survival tip number 10, get active. And so whenever possible, get active outside. Gym memberships can be really nice in the cold seasons, but they are completely unnecessary in the warm ones. It's really good for us to get outside, get some fresh air and sunshine. Even on a cloudy day, it's still better for us to get outside. People spend way too much time indoors. And so if all else fails, you can always take a small walk daily or several times a week. You can find things that you are interested in and pursue them. So that can be, of course, physical activities that you enjoy doing, whether that's walking, riding your bike, dancing, swimming, playing golf, any of those things, but seek those out. But I even take that a step further and find things that you're interested in that stimulate and cause your mind to be active. So for example, playing games, doing puzzles, learning how to play a new instrument, or learning a new language, something like that to keep your mind active as well. And then too much time is really wasted on televisions. So Americans watch an average of 151 hours of television per month. That's almost 5 hours a day. So if you don't have enough time for something like exercise, television time might be the first thing that needs to go. And it's amazing how much you can accomplish when the television goes off. Never will you look back on your life and wish you had watched more television. That's not going to happen. So we have some different resources. Eating Between the Lines, Cows Save the Planet is an excellent book that explains why cattle are actually good for the planet, and why, if they're managed properly, how they really can save our environment. And then Dr. Mark Hyman wrote Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And what I wanted to tell you is we always have our customer literature files. You are always welcome to come in and pick those up. If you ever want to set up a phone coaching session, right now due to COVID, we are not doing one-on-one coaching sessions, but you can feel free to contact me. My name is Kelly, and I work at the store at Wadsworth and Girton, 1 block north of Hamden. And so my store's address is very easy. It's 3333 South Wadsworth Boulevard in Lakewood. And my store's phone number is 303-989-4866. Again, that's 303-989-4866. You are welcome to call me, and I'm happy to set up a one-on-one phone coaching session with you. And then also starting in January and February, we are going to be starting with our virtual keto reset program. So that will be a 4-week program on Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And you can go to our website at naturalgrocers.com and you can click to join that. And then after each Wednesday night class, you are welcome to join our virtual support group series. You can join at whichever store is convenient for you. And so we encourage you to go to our website to look at all of that and partake of it. And then one last thing, and then we'll dive into any questions that you might have. But right now, our nutrient to know about is vitamin D. And vitamin D facilitates over 1,000 positive gene expressions in the human body. And what we have done at my store is we have partnered with Mountain Peace Shelter, which is a shelter that takes in victims of domestic violence along with their children and their pets. What we are asking our customers to do is to participate by coming into, and we're doing this at my store only, but you can purchase any brand of vitamin D and donate that bottle to the Mountain Peace Shelter. So we have our donation bin, which is filling up with bottles of vitamin D that our generous customers have donated. So that's going on until the end of December 31st. So with that being said, are there any questions? Let me see if I can get my camera. There it is.
Kelly, you mentioned your meal prep. Do you have suggestions of resources for ways to get started doing that, ways to make that easier? That's it's a big topic to try to synthesize, but.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, no problem. One simple way to start is by choosing like one meal that you want to focus on. For most people, that's going to be usually either their breakfast or their dinner. And the reason for that is once you've created one of those, like for example, if you have created a nice dinner, you're going to have leftovers for your lunch the next day. But one easy way, and especially if you are a single person or there's just maybe 2 people in your household, is to start by getting some frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are picked when they're at their peak ripeness and freshness, and then they are frozen, so that seals in all those good nutrients. And they're easy because if you're just a single person or like a married couple or something, you just want to pour out enough for that meal and maybe enough for your leftovers the next day. And you can steam those vegetables according to the direction on the package. That's super quick and easy. For some people, it might be an improvement for them just to get like some quality lunch meat, like turkey slices, and maybe include like string cheese on top of that with some mayonnaise. And I like horseradish sauce because it gives it a little bit of a zing. And then you can put things like spinach or tomatoes or cucumbers and roll that up in the turkey slices. So there's different ways that you can do things that make things easier. I'm a big fan of eggs because those are quick and easy. Often what I will do is cook up a pound of bacon and have that with my eggs in the morning, cutting up vegetables. So I'll cut up mushrooms and peppers and onions and spinach, things like that, to where I can just throw them into my eggs as they're cooking. So there's a lot of ways to make things easy.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you recommend microwaving? Does that take out a lot of the nutrients?
So yes, unfortunately, microwaves are not the best. It's such a hard thing because I know, especially in this day and age where people are so busy and they're trying to work a job or go to school or take care of the kids. And so sometimes microwaves are one of those necessary evils. But it is interesting that Russia, I believe it was back in 1972, banned all use of microwave ovens in their country. And there was an interesting study that I read about where they took two plants in two pots of soil and they took seeds. So they planted them in two pots of soil and they watered one pot with tap water, and then they watered the other pot with microwave tap water. And the one that was watered with microwave tap water, that seed never grew into a plant. So unfortunately, it heats by creating friction, which destroys some of the nutrition and the molecules found in your food. It would be best if you didn't use them.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let's see, I was trying to get my camera back, but it won't come back, and I'm not sure why. So,
There it is.
am I there?
Mhm.
Oh, I can't see myself.
Oh, you may have hidden it so that the thumbnail view isn't.
That might be what I did, but that's okay as long as you guys can see. Okay, there, I'll stop playing with it before I mess it up. Oh, was there any other questions?
Looks like that's it. I don't see anything in chat. So thank you for presenting and thank you to our patrons for attending.
Thank
And
you.
I did record that. Just got a little bit of commentary from my cat.
I appreciate you having me do the presentation today. I'm always grateful to come before the library groups. I enjoy doing these immensely. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Our staff here at Natural Grocers is highly trained. They are excellent and can answer most questions that you come in with and give you excellent guidance and direction in helping you with your health issues. So please feel free to come in and talk to us. We really would love to have you.
Great. Well, thank you, Kelly. And I will go ahead
Thank you,
and
Claire.
stop the recording.